More clarity, more creativity, and I would just say an overall better vibe because you are less stressed. Welcome back to the Balance Bully podcast for ambitious women in business and a few brave men. I'm your host, Naketa Ren Thigpen. We are finalizing our 5-part series of the alignment exit, giving you information that has hopefully helped you to see where and why it's beneficial to release people that no longer serve you anymore, that do not belong in your ecosystem, to realign with those people who do, but maybe you have to reposition them in different parts of your life or business or leadership, depending on what your strategy is there. And also to up-level yourself going forward to what I like to call, for our private advisory clients, your 10.0 version of yourself, which is a lot easier to do when you've released and you reposition some folks, right? I want to talk about beyond the exit. Like once you've exited those people who needed to be released and you've repositioned and realigned those that needed to be moved around from the outside of the gate, through the parking lot, through the atrium or entranceway of your estate in your heart of your relationships, the living room, the dining room, the breakfast nook, and the kitchen table, right? Like what does it look like when you've kind of moved those persons around and feeling like you've gotten everyone right where they need to be? What does life look like? What does your next level success look like? Well, I can tell you from personal experience as well as professional experience, helping so many of my clients do just this so they can free up the energy that they were using on overextending themselves, overburdening themselves to do more out of loyalty, out of fear, out of obligation, all of those things that have cost their body, cost literally through the stress and cortisol levels and issues and their immunity and all of the things that has happened there that have impacted their leadership ability to manage people at work, if that's what they were doing, that has impacted their creativity, their innovation, that has impacted their profits at the end of the day because of lower morale and because of not having the energy to pour in the way that they specifically should have been allowed to, but also have wanted to be able to do. And you know what it is when you don't have a lot of energy, you have a lull that is literally ripping through and kind of smothering out the beauty of your life, even though the logical part of you is like, I should appreciate this and I'm so grateful for it and I want to be able to enjoy this. But when you have people who are siphoning the oxygen from you and limiting your air, it's really hard. It's when it's hard to breathe, it's hard to do just about anything else, because that is the one thing that you need to do in this life, in this timeline, to live. So now that you can breathe again, now that you have more air, now that you feel like you have your mojo back and you have the vibe of like, yes, like I feel really good about my relationships personally, professionally, and my leadership to the extent that I can, especially if you work in another organization. And you always have to work with people that you don't necessarily align with, but with some strong boundaries and making sure that you're clearly communicating, there's ways to resolve that as well. Now that life has freed you up in this way, what does it look like? Well, it looks like the opposite of what we just went through, right? We now have more clarity in our decision making. We're not doubting ourselves as often as we were. We're not second guessing things. We're not feeling the need to be validated by validators who are literally trying to find ways to minimize our greatness, to make their lackluster greatness, to say the least. Maybe they are great in their own ways. I'm trying not to be too shady, but many times they want to be great alone. And if they do want you to be great, because we hear that a lot, like, oh, I want the people around me to also be great too. But what they're not saying is they don't want them to be as great as they are. That is a big, big, big issue. You really want to be able to look at what are the differences and similarities of those people that you are vibing with. So in the previous episode, I was just talking about, if you had, hopefully you had an opportunity to listen to the full series, preferably in order. I was talking about in my personal relationships, I find that I'm attracted to the differences. I recognize and appreciate the sameness, the similarities that we have. And of course, that makes for really good early stage relationship building conversation. But it's the differences that not only attract me, but kind of lock me in and make me want to really, like, it locks in my curiosity. I really want to go on an adventure, really learning more about this person or these people. And it pulls me into this almost magical world of building something new with whoever this human is or these humans are in my life. And they tend to be the people, quite honestly, for me, because you might be more attracted to sameness than differences. Again, I talked about that last episode for why, and there's no judgment about which, but I talked about where that can come from and many times in our attachment styles and all those things. But for me, I notice that there's an overlap between the differences that aren't always the same as me, because again, I'm attracted to the differences, but I notice there's an overlap for my friends. And I like really sat one day and just looked at all of the parts of them that get on my nerve, quite frankly, that frustrate me, that excite me, that I endear very much, that I appreciate, that I respect. Like I just kind of looked at all the feelings that I was feeling when I put someone's name on a piece of paper and just thought about memories that we've created together, things that we share, conflicts that we've had, how we handled them, how we navigated them, all of those things. And what came up for me, because I'm one of those people who love data and patterns and little matrix like things that once you see, you can't unsee. And out of all of my friends, I realized, and I mean friends, I don't mean people you're friendly with, but like people who are in my estate, my actual friends, I realized that there were 18 similarities amongst them. That blew my mind. I figured there would be, 4 or 5. I seem to be attracted to people who have a sense of humor because I'm a very silly person too. As serious as I can be, I can also be very silly. So that's kind of like a natural, if you're not a silly, if you don't have a sense of humor, it's really hard to be around other people who are silly, right? So that would be like a natural kind of in the line of sameness that would be helpful to have if you're in my ecosystem, especially as a lifer, right? Like not just for a season or a reason, but as a lifer. And I was looking at those people who have been lifers for me thus far, and there were 18 things. So I would charge you with the gift to yourself to just kind of look at now that you've done, some of the repositioning that we've talked about kind of high level over the last few episodes, is really look at what are the characteristics that you're drawn to in people. And also, do they show up in yourself? Are they same or they're different? Again, this isn't a judgment, but it will really help you get some clarity on what that is, because as you're now in this new season of life and having more air to breathe, which gives you more energy, more creativity, more vigor, you're just a whole different vibe now because you feel more anchored in yourself and in your life. Now that you're here, you're going to be attracting more people that we've talked about a couple of episodes back. Those people who have been waiting energetically on the outside of your current ecosystem, waiting to bring you gifts. Just like you've been giving to the world, you've been extending yourself, you've been showing up for people, you've been doing, deliberately what you've been doing, giving them moments of joy, all of that. There are people who want to give that to you too, that have been waiting for your energy, just like you didn't necessarily know maybe before this alignment exit series, but you've been waiting to have more of that. They've been waiting for you too, and now they're coming in. So it's really helpful for you to see what that looks like, what that feels like, the awesomeness, the release of being with your people and knowing that these are your people. And then they're not offended because you have to schedule time, because they appreciate that you have full schedules, right? And you don't have to over explain yourself, that they're not trying to compete with you in any way, that they're only competing with themselves. And they love that you rally for them to be a better version of themselves. And they're not so sensitive to take it as a criticism, but they see it as something that is beautifully constructive, uplifting, and helpful. And you're mindful that when you're doing it, you're not doing it to keep them at a level that's not as good as you, that you want them to go far and beyond that. And they want you to do the same. Like whatever that is that pulls you forth, those are your people that are waiting for you. So when we're looking at beyond the exit now and what that could show up for us, It is peace beyond our understanding. It is joy. It is wisdom. It is health, because we are not nearly as stressed as we were before. It is wealth, right? It is love. It is happiness. That's what that looks like now that you've repositioned, you've released, you've realigned people and created that alignment exit that you needed. And if you haven't done that because you've been listening to this series and you've been, multitasking, as we tend to do when we're listening to things, especially with our attention spans these days, and you're like, yes, I'm vibing with you, Naketa. Yes, I'm shaking my head. I totally agree with this, that, and the third, but I haven't actually sat to do it. Don't worry. Now that you've gotten to this stage, and again, if you popped into this one sooner than you should have, I still encourage you to go listen. They're very short. They're somewhere between 13 and 18 minutes. Go listen to the previous 4 episodes, because the series kind of builds you through where we are right now. And download the alignment exit strategy that is completely free below in the show notes here. The podcast, we might put it into little other places, and do the step-by-step for the alignment exit strategy, so that you can, if you haven't already, or if you want to just kind of make sure that you hit all the spots and you really worked it out. If you're visual like me and you really need something to see, that table format to see where to put people in the proverbial parking lot, living room, entranceway, all the things, download the alignment exit strategy. Your heart will thank you. Your relationships will thank you. Your next level will thank you. I hope that you've benefited from the last few episodes, that you see the possibilities of really getting your relationships in order, because it helps you to get yourself in order. It helps you be a better friend, a better lover, a better leader, a better business mogul, whatever it is that you aspire to be a better version of. It doesn't mean that you're not already really good at many of those things, but why settle for good when you can be great? Download the alignment exit strategy, completely free, work it out. And if you are bold and brave, send me an email or come over to the Substack at Naketa Ren Thigpen. Somewhere, pick an article. I'm constantly writing about relationships and balance and spirituality and all the things that are just connected to healing and growing and thriving. Come and let me know what you thought about doing the strategy, implementing the strategy. What came up for you while you were working it out, but also what came up for you and your relationships around 30 or 60 days after you had some of those very awkward conversations that you need to have as you're repositioning people and releasing them. Not ghosting, but releasing, which you'll also get more information on inside the strategy, as well as if you're a part of our community via email, you also get more information about making sure that you're doing things in ways that are literally pulling you up and not pushing you down spiritually, energetically, or anything in between. In the interim, as always, I want you to enjoy the balance of your day, but remember, do it boldly.